moment, but since we haven't had a workshop in a while, I wanted to talk about something that I was currently working on. And again, like always, if anybody has something that you think would be interesting, then let me know. John Shinnick thinks he will be prepared to present on public key to present on public key infrastructure next week. So that should be interesting. So here about Concourse, there's just to set the stage a bit, obviously there's been a series of tools that we have used here on our media in this kind of generic space. We started with Bamboo, and because it had good integration with Jira and whatnot. Then on our case, we kind of moved into the GitLab CI, which remains our direction. There's been lots of good work that went into the GitLab CI, and we have a pretty smooth running release process that is coordinated across all of the many repositories that go into our case, which is pretty good work. And then I understand that some of the other projects are looking at Jenkins or some other tools. So I look into this one here. As compared to Bamboo and to Jenkins, which I regard as kind of older generation tools, Concourse, kind of like the GitLab CI, is a very clean CI. This is the Concourse website here. You can see that it itself, I think, is very, very kind of clean. I don't expect you guys to read everything here, but just to show, I think that the website, this homepage of the website presents information in a pretty well thought out layout, and I find kind of similar attention to detail is all throughout. And the user interface itself is very simple and clean. Let me switch over to so this is Concourse running in my VM I have running locally. You can see there's not a lot happening on this page, which is very nice. I find that Bamboo is very busy. On the other hand, you do have a dashboard, right? Unlike the GitLab CI that you have to go to each of the projects to find out what's happening in each project, because the GitLab CI is based on build files that are hosted in each project, and you have to visit each one to see what's happening there. So with Concourse, we again have the possibility of having kind of a central approach with all of our pipelines defined in one place. These pipelines that you see here are from the Concourse tutorials. I don't have anything that is working in terms of any of our projects here to show you. You can see that this itself can even be crunched down more. Perhaps you can't see, but way down here at the bottom is a little high density switch. So I can make this even more compressed by crunching it down to only this list of pipelines. And they have some color coding down here, so you can see the status of each one. So that's all the UI is. In Jenkins and Bamboo, it's a very heavy and busy user interface. You have to click here and click there and click there and click about 500 times to do anything that's useful. And Concourse here is very easy. If we click into a pipeline here, you get kind of a visual overview of what is happening. I don't know that I'll go into a lot of detail over what these are, but these boxes in black are resources that it pulls from. This resource tutorial is the Git project for the overall tutorial I've been following. So even all the scripts that are used in the build, Concourse can retrieve that from Git and then use it. One problem we had in Bamboo was that we put a number of non-trivial shell scripts into the build process, and those were all embedded into the Bamboo pages. And every time we set up a build for a new project, we would have to copy those scripts from some project that had it working into the new one. So in Concourse, you do have an architecture to retrieve the entire build from Git and then execute it. So these things in black are resources. This is a nice overview of what's happening here. You can see that this job will start by pulling from 2 repositories. It will do something in here, and then it's going to send results into a repository. So it does both a fetch, a git pull from resource gist, and then it does a git push back into resource gist, and then it will feed that into another job here. So you have a pretty nice overview of everything. This is very simplistic for a demo perspective. If I jump back into the Concourse homepage, so this more complicated example is something more like we would have here. You can see that here they pull from a repository, they run some tests. If it passes, they create a version, create a release candidate, then they do another version here. Anyway, create some release notes and whatnot. Anyway, it's a pretty effective overview of the whole process. And this whole thing is also in a repository. But just to show how you can start a job from here, let me go back into my local laptop. The dash line here means that Concourse is not watching this. If it was a solid line, then this resource gist would be a trigger, and Concourse would be watching it for commits, and it would launch this job every time it saw a commit. Which is what's happening with this line over here. This means that we have to start the job bump date manually, and then if it works and it pushes a commit to resource gist, this job over here is going to see that commit, and then it will run automatically. So if I go here into this job, so you can see the results of all the previous builds here. Again, in my mind, this UI here is nice and clean and pretty easy to use. I can either rerun the last build with the same inputs or just start a new one. So if I start one and go back here to the job page, then we should see, here we can see that it's pending now. Down here you can see this little gray outline is pending. And now we can see that it has started, so it's doing some work. In a second, we'll see that it stops. Okay, so that part of the job is done, and now the job show date should see that something happened in resource gist, and we should see that it starts in a couple of seconds here. So let me wait for a second. Anyway, it should start in a second. That's what happened before.
Sorry, Dave, I came in late. Where is this running? Where is the actual build being executed?
So this is in a VM that I have running locally here. In a second, let me go into here and see what. Yeah, there's only been 4 builds on here. Anyway, that's a little mysterious. I will go into the architecture of the installation in a bit.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So anyway, so that is the basic idea. Let me show you what's in this pipeline here, which I have here in code. And again, the entire build is defined here in code in the same way that it is in GitLab CI. So everything can be versioned and managed and whatnot. Everything is based on these resources. You see, we have a resource type of Git. I will show you a resource type catalog in a second, but really, the extensibility model of Concourse here is based on these resource types. You get resources to feed into a job, and then you put into resources to to push the outputs of a job into somewhere. You can see for Git, you can provide a URI and a branch, or here we can provide a private key. There's different ways to fetch these secrets and private keys that I will talk about in a second. And here we have the jobs, the job bump date that was on the left and the job show date that was on the right. And job show date here you can see is a trigger, so it runs automatically and it runs when the job bump date has passed. So the job show date wouldn't be run until the job bump date runs, and then it should have an output. And then in terms of the commit to Git, so what happens because we have this output here. This name updated gist refers to I think it refers down here. So here we are doing a put into the resource gist, and what we are putting is our updated gist for repository. So that's how it knows to push back in. It's pretty declarative in our GitLab CI builds when we're pushing back into either Maven or into Git. We are essentially writing a bash script that gets executed within a container. This is a little bit higher level language, and it gives you kind of a uniform way to deal with all these resources. I've only worked with Git resources so far, but you can send emails and post to Maven all within this kind of uniform syntax, which is nice. So it's somewhat of a higher level language and more composable, I think, than we get with a GitLab CI. A few more things I wanted to talk about on this Concourse CI page, this homepage. There are some other tools that people commonly use that are kind of a freemium model, and they have kind of everything in the homepage. Everything on their homepages are geared for you to buy their enterprise edition. So Concourse, Concourse is only this concourse.org. There's no freemium model. There's no extra features that we aren't allowed to use and everything. So that part I like a lot. From a deployment architecture perspective, it's a 12-factor application. That means that it's just a single executable files that get their entire configuration from the environment. Let me show you how I run these things. Wait, I should have another window open here to the build scripts, but I don't. Let me open that up. Sorry, I thought I had that already open. So this is the systemd file I wrote to start the, there's two components, a web front end and a worker service. This Concourse command line is all there is. The entire application folder is only this one file. It's a pretty good size file, but it's only this one single file. And you provide it everything it needs to know on this environment. This is how it knows where Postgres is. I'm just running with the local user right now, but this is also where you would tell it what kind of authentications to use and whatnot. Everything just comes through this environment. So it's very, very easily containerizable. And if you go forward with an Amazon installation, it would be a piece of cake to run this under Fargate or something. So that is a nice part of it. And then the worker part of it is the same way. Again, it's actually the very same executable, only with a worker parameter instead of a web parameter, and you just kind of provide it a different set of environment vars. Like the GitLab CI, it's kind of based on starting Docker containers. That's another huge advantage over Jenkins and Bamboo. All the builds are stateless. you get an image and start a container, and everything happens within that container, which means that all you have to do is get a container that has the tools you want. We don't have to manage, like on Bamboo, we have to manage the versions of Maven and Java and NPM and whatnot that are on the server, and the same thing with Jenkins. But with Concourse here, it's just a way to automate Docker containers and passing inputs and outputs into and from the scripts that you run inside the container, which is something else that I meant to bring out, something that they mentioned here. It's not really only limited to CI/CD the way that I'm describing. I mean, there's nothing that says you can only use this infrastructure only to retrieve from Git, run some tests, and push to a development server, right? It's a general automation tool that we could use for many other things besides CI/CD if we end up to go in that direction. So let's see, I mentioned, you kind of saw in here that we have to provide, I mean, obviously when you push, I mean, certainly when we push into Git, ordinarily we need to provide a way to tell Git who we are. In GitLab CI, we can do that in a pretty acceptable way by providing environment variables through a part of the GitLab CI that you have to be an admin to see. So not everybody can see the secrets that are available to the script. But I still hesitate to even have that level of exposure if we go to a public Git repository, either GitHub.com or GitLab CI or whichever, or the GitLab site. So here we can lift these from a number of vaults that Concourse supports. It supports the HashiCorp vault, which is probably the most popular one, but it also supports the Amazon secret store and a couple of other vaults. That's one thing that really attracts me over what we have in a GitLab CI, that we can keep all these secrets in a very secret way. The way that works, I don't have that working here that I can show you, but in a previous installation attempt, I had it working with our vault.ourmedia.com. Our media actually already has a HashiCorp vault. And essentially, you provide Concourse with a token of some sort, and then it just uses that token, which it does refresh every hour or so to authenticate to the vault, and then it has access to the parts of the vault that you tell the vault that it should have access to. So it's pretty well thought out in that regard, in my opinion.
Dave, just wanting to ask, is this in the free version available? Is there some enterprise version?
So Concourse is the open source version. There's no enterprise Concourse.
Okay.
So which
GitLab also supports HashiCorp Vault, but only the enterprise version, premium.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's so that is one thing that I really like about Concourse is that Concourse is only this open source one. You can see here, there's no ads here. There's no, so the only advertisement they have is for you to participate in the project, which I think is really nice. Also, I think it's nice that there's no little chatbot thing that pops up here to bother me saying, can we help you decide what you want to buy and everything. It's just, a very simple and clean architecture. And all it's doing is kind of providing this automation approach, which is something that I like a lot. Again, we could have, so it's kind of a mix of the good parts of Bamboo and the good parts of GitLab CI. It was nice in Bamboo that we could go to one place and see all the build plans. So we can have that with Concourse we can have all the build plans in kind of a special Git repository, and then we just have one place to store the plans themselves. And again, we also have this little dashboard here to see the state of all these. It's not obvious here, but there are different teams. You can set up separate areas of Concourse. I'm kind of logged into a tutorial area, but we could have like an ArcCase area where you see the ArcCase plans here. Like a Tahoe area or whatnot. So there is a way to segregate by users or teams or groups, so that not every plan within all of our media is available to everybody if we want it, but we could set things up in a segmented way if we want. And so I am going to proceed down here and experimenting some more. I've almost run through all the tutorial exercises, and I wanted to keep going by trying to build the ADK UI through here and just seeing how far that we go. Again, it's everything in here still only counts as an experiment on my part. It was a good sized effort to try to redo our nicely working GitLab CI builds in here. But still, as I told the ArcCase development kit guys, all of those guys are working on nice, new, interesting things at the moment, but I didn't get to join that part yet. So this is my nice, new, interesting thing that I'm working on now. And that, I think, is all I wanted to cover in my usual, not very organized way. But if you guys have any questions or comments about it, this would be a good time to have a discussion.
Well, I think that it looks great compared to GitLab, and perhaps we will need to move this way if we are going to move the code to GitHub, because then our GitLab CI won't work. Yeah. So.
I think it has some potential, right? We could see, if you kind of take this more complex example, if you kind of think about the release train that we have in our case, we could imagine seeing all that laid out in one single pipeline, which would be, a lot easier to kind of see everything that's happening. And whatnot. So I think it has some good potential. And again, we could have all the scripts kind of in one place. It gives us an easier way. So once we have kind of a common kind of section of a build that's working for one project, it's a lot easier to apply it to other ones. So I think it has some good potential, actually.
Hey, David. We're spending a lot of time recently in AWS's code commit, code build, code deploy, and code pipeline. Have you done any analysis comparison with this, this product versus AWS's like code pipeline and its stack of services for that?
Yeah, all I know about the Amazon products is that they exist. I think it would be very awesome if you guys had some time to do a similar presentation on the Amazon stack, that would be great.
Okay.
I would love to understand more how it works and to hear your all's opinion of the Amazon tools.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
That would be awesome.
Hi, David. I would have a question. The pipeline scripts are in the YAML files essentially. So those YAML files, are they located in the repositories that they are supposed to be, or are they located elsewhere?
So this part here, the actual job file itself, this is obviously stored in a file, but you push this up into the server. I think, see this little expose pipeline. Okay, well, I thought that there was a way to see it. I think I'm not all that familiar with how all this works here, but anyway, so this part is obviously stored on the Concourse server someplace, and that's how it knows how to work. But you see, so it pulls this tutorial resource where all these came from. And then you can see this run section here, and that it's calling a shell script file. This script, this actual shell script, is not stored within Concourse. That is the nice thing. I tried to call out that with both the GitLab CI and the Bamboo, these scripts that are part of the build are embedded within the actual build, like within the Bamboo UI and within the single huge GitLab CI YAML. But here, so it gives you the ability that you can say, to pull some repo, and then you can have it run scripts that are inside that repository. So if I go to I think I'm in this actual repository. So here we have the Concourse tutorial, which is the actual repository that is talking about. And you can see that which job are we in here now? Anyway, the pipeline jobs. So you can see here that. Anyway, so this script itself, all these scripts that you might want to run as part of the build are not pushed up into Concourse, but it can fetch those from Git as part of the Git resource that it pulls, and then you can execute them. So there's kind of a separation from the scripts that you use within the build from the actual pipeline structure itself.
Can you?
Yeah, the reason I asked this question is. Well, I have experience with a number of continuous integration, continuous deployment tools, just a little bit with GitLab, but I know Circle CI quite well, and I tried a little bit the AWS code pipeline, etc. things, and the main issue I have with Circle CI and also like Bitbucket pipelines and most of the products on the market is that you have one Git repository and they expect the script, the CI scripts to be inside this repository, usually in the .something file like .gitlabci.yaml or .circleci and that kind of things. And that ties the source code with the build pipeline itself. And
right.
I found this quite inconvenient, especially when you want to automate deployments to different environments. You could have the same repository, and you would want to automatically deploy it to staging or to production, let's say. But the limitation I found is that since it's the same pipeline running, you need the same credentials, for example, to deploy to AWS. So it means you need to have like a machine user that is able to deploy both in staging and production, which is kind of annoying, really, and a bit of a security issue. And what I found with the AWS offerings is that the pipelines themselves are objects in themselves. So the and this, it seems to be the same with this Concourse tool, in the sense that you have a first step, which is to pull to pull the Git repository, but I suspect you could have more than one repository, and And the pipeline itself seems to be a separate entity from the Git repository it's building.
Right. Exactly. So that's among the things I like about Concourse. We're not restricted to the repository that we want to build and deploy. Right. So all this Concourse infrastructure can be completely separate. So in the actual code repository, like in the RCase repo, there wouldn't be any build information. But we can encode all the build information someplace else. We're not restricted to the GitLab CI YAML or to the Circle CI YAML. We have much more flexibility in how we lay things out. So we certainly don't have any of those constraints. And you can see here a good example of what I'm talking about. You know, the first thing that you see when you go to Circle CI is about, in the first place, you see how awesome it is. You know, start building for free, sign up for a live demo, sign up, blah, blah, blah. And then, a bunch of advertisements here, a bunch of logos, blah, blah. And then here's our chatbot that is really annoying and distracting. So this is all meant to draw you in to pay stuff, right? So all these ESOS links all down here. So this is what I'm talking about. That on this website is much more of an engineering website, right? It's not really saying how great Concourse is, but it describes what it does. So it's not saying, Concourse is the best. It's just saying what Concourse actually is, and then how to get to it, and some examples. So this list is much more geared towards engineers, and there's no sales efforts or anything on here, all of which I like. Anyway, you brought up a number of points, but those are my first two reactions when I look at the Circle CI sites.
No, actually, it is very important for us to have the build script inside the code, because then the build script is versioned. We have an issue, for example, where when we built the latest RCase, we built 6-7 projects, I think. But if you return back to 3.3.1 version, then you build 3 projects only. And you need to have different build script for each, because it will fail. The latest one won't work with in an older version. So that's why the build script needs to be in the code. I don't know if supports that.
Yeah, the way that we would handle that is, of course, it could be in the code. I mean, there isn't anything that keeps us from having this source be our code, right? And then, so this, it doesn't have to be like RCase-build or .get. It could be just our code base, our RCase.get. So that is one way we could approach it. But then it gets us into the issue that I talked about, that our release train code is spread across our 6 or 7 repositories. So we could have a single builder that we version, right? So within our RCase build project, we could make that itself a part of the release train, right? So we would have, we would evolve this type of job script. We would consider this even as part of the 6 or 7 repositories that we already track. So that's a couple of ways that we could approach on that issue. Essentially, we would version this pipeline to correspond to the versions of RCase that the pipeline supports.
Yeah, that's important.
Right.
To have these jobs versioned.
Right.
Okay. So these jobs can live in some repository.
Right.
Not only in this tool.
Right, and then So that is the nice part about just having the pipeline stages defined here. But then what it actually does, it is coming from the Git repo that we cloned up here. So here, imagining that this was really an our case pipeline, we would run some shell script here, and then if you want to do something different, we would version this script, and then the next time you run the pipeline, then it would run that new version and whatnot. And so we could do the versioning at that level. If we wanted to add a whole new job in the pipeline, then we would version the pipeline itself. So there's a couple of layers we could apply the versioning to.
Yeah, I guess if it's a good CI tool, it should support these things maybe in another completely.
Right.
I should read about it and try it out. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, we really like AWS's code commit, build, deploy pipeline. You do store all your code in code commit, and even the build projects that AWS standardizes on. The build projects can also be stored and saved in code commit. And yeah, David, we'll do a demo sometime in the next month or so to talk about the pluses and minuses of AWS's implementation of CI/CD. And maybe that will open the doors for our team to think about using it as an option versus using some open source thing. Okay, thanks.
Very nice. Yeah. Okay, thanks everybody for calling in. I will push the recording out and ask Igor to upload it into YouTube. Hopefully, John will present on PKI next week, and then maybe Yasser will present on Amazon's code pipelines a week or two after that. If you're interested in showing something else, please let me know. Thanks, everybody, and we will chat again soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, David. Bye-bye.
Bye.